This is an overview of the first required article that you're reading for this semester. There will be two others that you're going to also integrate into your final essay, but this is the one that we're going to work with first. So I'm going to give you an overview. I'm going to read through it with you, and I'm going to point out some things. It might be a good idea if you print off a copy so you can make some notes on it. Otherwise, you can just jot down some of the ideas that I'm going to give you here that I'm going to go over. I apologize for the quality of my voice. I'm struggling a lot with allergies right now, so I'm going to do my best to get through this without coughing too much. So first thing you're going to notice is this article is from the SAC Library's ProQuest database. So it doesn't look like it would look in its original format online. It comes from the Wall Street Journal online edition, so it looks quite different. So there's some things here that I want to point out to you in terms of you doing your citations and your works cited page. Of course, I've given you the information for the works cited page on the citation guide linked in the directions. So the full title of the article is "The High School Juniors with 70,000 a Year Job Offers, Companies with Shortages of Skilled Workers Look to Shot Class to Recruit Future Hires." Quote, "Like I'm an athlete getting all this attention from all these pro teams," end quote. That's the full title. It's written by Chen Taiping, published in the Wall Street Journal, May 7, 2025. If you wanted to find a copy, that's the actual URL. It gets you to the SEC Maricopa database. This document does not have an abstract. What I want to do, though, is I put here a truncated form of the works cited. This is also on the citation guide page that I've linked as well. It would just be the last name, first name of the author, and the title in quotes, the source in italics, the date by day, month, year, excuse me, and there should be no comma right there. I don't know why, darn it. There you go. And then instead of putting in the URL, we're just going to use web, and then of course date of access, which might be different depending on which semester you're using this. Of course, you want to make sure that you italicize Wall Street Journal. You'll also notice that unlike the ProQuest offering up here, right, I've made sure to capitalize all major words, except with should not be capitalized. I'm catching my own errors because it's a preposition. And all major words are capitalized, first letters are capitalized, and you'll notice where the periods come within the quotes. Okay, so that's that. Now what I've done here is I've sort of kind of color-coded some of the text so we can talk about it in chunks in terms of understanding how the whole text comes together. If you're not a heavy reader, or if you are in college reading skills classes this semester, if you have a hard time with reading comprehension, it might be a good idea to listen carefully as I go through this video. Otherwise, you can probably put me on 2x speed and just jot down a few notes. So the first thing I want to point out is this area here that I've highlighted, underlined in green. This really is functioning as an introduction to the article. One thing I want to say is this is what we would call a news feature. It is not an essay. It's not a research report. It's not straight up news. It's a news feature. It's very different than college writing. So there's some things you're going to want to pay attention to that I point out here that you don't want to replicate in your own writing because you're doing college level writing. You're not writing a news feature. So journalistic style is very different from academic style. So these first four short paragraphs represent the introduction, and they use something what we would call a anecdotal hook or a story hook to start out the article. So Elijah Rios won't graduate from high school until next year, but he already has a job offer, one that pays $68,000 a year. Rios, a 17-year-old, is a junior taking welding classes at Father Judge, a Catholic high school in Philadelphia that works closely with companies looking for workers in skilled trades. Employers are dealing with a shortage of such workers as baby boomers retire. They have increasingly begun courting high school students like Rios, a hiring strategy they say is likely to even be more crucial in the coming years. Employers ranging from the local transit system to submarine manufacturers make regular visit to Father Judge's welding classrooms every year, bringing branded swag and pitching students on their workplaces. When Rios graduates next year, he plans to work as a fabricator at a local equipment maker for nuclear recycling and other sectors, a job that pays $24 an hour, plus regular overtime and paid vacation. Quote, sometimes it's a little overwhelming, like this company wants you, that company wants you, says Rios, who grew up in the Philadelphia neighborhood of Kingston and homelessness, and says he was determined to build a better life for himself. Quote, it honestly feels like I'm an athlete getting all this attention for all these pro teams. So one thing, it's a nice little hook as an anecdotal hook. It introduces to a specific person with a specific story. But one thing I want to point out, because this is a problem I often see with first-year college students, is they replicate their academic writing on journalistic writing. Different standard, like I said. So let's look at this quote. This sentence or this paragraph starts with a quote. The signal phrase, or who's saying the quote, or sometimes we call it a signal phrase or an attribution or an author tag, is in between the quote. So it says Rios. The says, the signal phrase, is the verb that links who is speaking this quote. So the author, Taiping, has quoted Rios directly. Perfectly normal in news writing. However, in academic writing, if you wanted to use this quote, let's say somehow in a piece of your writing this semester, you would need to take this says Rios, who grew up in Philadelphia neighborhood, that whole part there, you would have to move it to the front of the quote. So you would do something like Elijah Rios, comma, who grew up in Philadelphia neighborhood of Kingston, says, quote, sometimes it's a little overwhelming. So we would move what's in the middle here, the signal phrase, to the beginning in academic writing. So you never start with a quote in academic writing. You always start, with the signal phrase or the attribution before a quote. So the reader is anticipating who's saying what. All right, so that's the introduction to the article. This highlighted part is serving as the central idea of the entire article. So it's a central idea, what the entire article is really about. In academic writing, the central idea gets transformed into a thesis statement. This is a news feature, doesn't have a thesis statement. It has more or less a central idea, which reads, increased effort to recruit high schoolers into professions such as plumbing, electrical work, and welding have helped spur revitalization of shop classes in many districts. And then there's a little follow-up there to sort of flesh that out. More businesses are teaming up with high schools to enable students to work part-time, earning money as well as academic credit. More employers are showing up at high school career days and turning to creative recruiting strategies as well. All right, central idea is basically this idea that there's this effort to recruit high schoolers in order to fill the trades that we see looming on the horizon. How has Tingpeng going to support this entire central idea? It's going to support it with four main ideas, and you'll notice I have the four main ideas highlighted in different colors, and then I have them identified there. So the first main idea is that trade skills are more tech infused than they were in the past. It's a very short main idea. It's also going to include another quote. There's something else I want to talk about with this quote when we get to it here. Employers say that as skills trade become more tech infused, they anticipate doing even more recruitment at an early age because they need workers who are comfortable programming and running computer diagnostics. Quote, I'm not looking to hire a guy I used to have 20 years ago, says Bob Walker, founder of Global Affinity, the Bristol, Pennsylvania-based manufacturer who offered Rios a job. The equipment he uses is highly advanced, including a 1.7 million steel laser cutter, as he says he needs tech-savvy workers to operate it. So a couple things here. Number one, notice where the signal phrase comes. It comes after the quote. In academic writing, it would come before the quote. Number two, in addition to saying who is saying what, we also have what's called credibility. So notice it doesn't just say, quote, I'm not looking to hire a guy I used to have 20 years ago, says Bob Walker. The equipment he uses is highly advanced. And we'd be going, who's Bob Walker and why does his opinion count? Notice we have his attribution, or I'm sorry, his credibility. He's a founder of Global Affinity. What's that? It's a Bristol, Pennsylvania-based manufacturer. So whenever you introduce a person who's going to say something, whether you're going to quote him or paraphrase him, the first time you introduce that person, you give their first and last name and you tell us who they are. And then from there on, you can just refer to them by their last name. Okay, a couple things here. Notice the abbreviation of Pennsylvania. It should, in academic writing, we would spell that out. We wouldn't abbreviate it. Second main idea that supports this central idea up here highlighted in yellow is in these next two short paragraphs. And it's that because industry, the they is the industry, can't find enough skilled workers, they're recruiting students now through these summer camps. So we go on to say, Angie Simon, until recently, chief executive of a mechanical contractor in California in 2021, started the quote, or actually this is the title of the organization, Heavy Metal Summer Experience, a nonprofit summer program that exposes high school students to careers in the trades, including welding, plumbing, and piping. She is now executive director of the program, which is free to participants who apply. It will enroll 900 students this summer in 51 locations across the country, mostly hosted by local contractors who often hire former campers as they graduate. Then we have a quote, you got to stop thinking someone else is going to solve the problem, says Simon, or Simon, I guess it is, whose former company at times struggled to fill certain roles. Quote, why don't you do something about it, end quote. Then we go on to the next paragraph of this central idea, or main idea. Jenny Cantrell, 18, is working at Canistro, a plumbing and HVAC mechanical contractor that hosted her summer camp in Boston. She credits the camp for piquing her interest in plumbing and accepted Canistro's job offer without looking elsewhere. Quote, I already had that connection, she says. So a couple things. Notice the taping's introducing a new source, Angie Simon, but notice it's just not Angie Simon says, you know, this and that. It gives her credibility. She used to be an chief executive of a mechanical contractor, and now she's the executive director of this program, Heavy Metal Summer. Notice, just doesn't say Heavy Metal Summer. It tells you what Heavy Metal Summer is, a nonprofit summer program. So two things about credibility. Mostly credibility is associated with an individual person, the first and last name. Why do we care about this person? What's their credibility in terms of what the central idea of this article is about? It can also include credibility or information about an organization. In this case, the program Heavy Metal Summer. All right. Again, here we have a quote from Simon. Notice how we went from Angie Simon just down to Simon. It's not Angie. Don't go by first name. It's just down to last name. Now, in this case, she's already been introduced. If we wanted to use this quote in something in our academic writing, we would simply move the signal phrase to the front. Simon says, okay, that's kind of funny, quote, you've got to stop thinking someone else was going to solve your problem, period. Why don't you do something about it, end quote. So we would combine these two parts of the split quote into one quoted sentence with the signal phrase in front. The other part of main idea 2 involves another source for Tim Ping's article. This Jenny Cantrell, she's serving as an example as a high school student. And again, notice it's just not Jenny Cantrell says, I already had that connection. No, it gives you her age. It gives you what her involvement is with the summer camp. And then here is her quote. Notice the she says, the signal phrase is at the end. It would have been better to say she says or Cantrell says, comma quote, I already had that connection, period, end quote. So the main thing here I'm trying to reinforce is two things. One, that you never introduce a source, a person, without also giving the credibility. You always introduce them by their first and last name and their credibility. From there on after, it can just go to their last name. You never make reference to an organization without giving some descriptor to the organization. And two, you always move signal phrases or attributions to quotes before the quote, not in the middle of a quote or after the quote. All right, let's move on to main idea 3. It's a little bit longer. It's a little more detailed. Main idea 3 supports the central idea that in the past, trades were snubbed from career fairs, but now they are a viable option to college and attracting students to industry. This one's a little longer and there's some more details in it. A decade ago, administrators often snubbed employers in the skilled trades who tried to get a table at a high school career fair, says Aaron Hilger, CEO of the Sheet Metal and Air Conditioning Contractors National Association. But with more high schools trying to give students alternatives to college, he says, that attitude has changed. I want you to look closely at this little paragraph. Tenping is attributing some ideas to Aaron Hilger, but there's no quotes around it because she's paraphrased as opposed to directly quoted. Same holds true with paraphrase. It would have been in academic writing, we would remove the attribution to the paraphrased information to the front. So Aaron Hilger, CEO of Sheet Metal, blah, 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 Air Conditioning National Association says a decade ago, we would move it to the front in academic writing. We go on with main idea 3. Constellation Energy, an operator of U.S. nuclear power plants based in Baltimore, notice it's a descriptor, right, offers maintenance technician and equipment operator roles that are open to high school graduates with 4-year college degrees and pay as much as 6 figures. And now we're going to get a quote. Again, who's it by? Ray Stringer. Credibility, a vice president overseeing workforce development in the company. Academic writing, we would move Ray Stringer, a vice president overseeing workforce development in the company, says, comma quote, okay, these are family-sustaining careers. Last year, Constellation launched a work-based learning program outside Chicago that invites high school students to shadow workers at the company's nuclear facilities while also earning community college credit. The company sponsors Skills USA. Now we need a descriptor, a national organization that annually convenes a week-long conference where students learning the trades can show off their skills at a venue of the size of 31 football fields. The organization, founded in 1965, has seen an influx of interest from employers in the past few years, as well as students. Hundreds of companies now attend Skill USA every year or each year to get their name in front of prospective hires, says the group's executive director, Shelley Travis. Again, we have says the group's director, Shelley Travis, but there's no quotes, so apparently that information has been paraphrased, not direct quoted. Again, we would take the signal phrase or the attribution to these ideas, move it to the front in academic writing. Shelley Travis, Skill USA's group executive director, says, and then the paraphrase. We go on with main idea 3. The smartest employers get a foot into high schools early on by offering internships, says Roxanne. Now this name I don't know. It looks like a French name to me. I guess Emot? I'm not sure. Your guess is as good as mine. An automotive instructor at Bullard's Havens Technical School in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Quote, I tell them, don't call me for students when they graduate. Grab them now when they're 16 or 17, or I have nobody to work for you. So again, her attribution does come before the quote in the previous sentence, which is good. What I would say is, in terms of academic writing, we would never abbreviate the state Connecticut. We would spell it out. And since this is its own complete sentence, and so is this, after I would write out Bridgeport, Connecticut. I would write a mo or a ma, however you say her name, says, comma, quote, I tell them. Okay, and then we go on to this next little sentence, which is actually connected to that. An open house at the high school last fall attracted a record 1,000 people, Mo says, and all her classes have wait list. Finally, the last portion of main idea 3, Dan Schnaufer, service and body shop director at the nearby, I would have to say, Diodorado Automotive Group, brings on several high school students every year to work part-time in his shop, including the Bullards Havens. They receive academic credit for their work, and he has the benefit of seeing their skills and temperament in action and being first in line to hire them once they graduate. Okay. And again, he doesn't say anything here, but he's given his first and last name. He's given his credibility. All right, so again, the big thing to remember is moving attribution signal phrases before quotes, even before paraphrased ideas, and to spell out names of states. We don't abbreviate in academic writing. Finally, we have main idea 4, which finishes off the article. You can see here there's no, as we would in academic writing, there's no dedicated conclusion. That's often the case with journalistic style, particularly news features. So this main idea 4, the fourth idea that builds the central idea of the article, is trade skills and vocational education is a positive step toward the future of the workforce. Tim Peng starts off this section with, is a focus on the skilled trades in high school positive for the future workforce? I want to point out something here. This is what we call a rhetorical question, meaning that Tim Peng already knows the answer. She's just providing that question as a transitional device to move on to this next main idea. The idea of, quote, the idea of growing your own talent has gotten more critical in recent years when you have fewer and fewer people going into the industry, he says. Who's the he? The he is this Dan Schnaufer, okay? Now, from a journalistic style even, I would say it would have been better to say Schnaufer says to make that connection clear, because this rhetorical question here is a break between this paragraph and that paragraph. So that can actually make the reader go, wait, who's the he we're talking about here? At his shop, fresh high school graduates make up to $50,000 a year, he says, and 6 figures within 5 years without college debt. Again, we would have said, academically, we would have said, Schnaufer says, the idea of growing your own talent, right? We move the attribution before the quote. For years, the pendulum has swung too far in the direction of college for all mindset, and it's important to make sure students are made aware of their options, says Steve Klein, a researcher who focuses on vocational education at the nonprofit Education Northwest. At the same time, as interest in vocational education rises, he worries that sentiments run the risk of swinging too much in the other direction. Okay, a couple things about this paragraph. Again, this is paraphrased ideas from Steve Klein. We would move Steve Klein and his credibility to the front. Academically speaking, we would say Steve Klein, a researcher who focuses on vocational education at the nonprofit Educational Northwest, claims for years, blah, 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 right? So that's one thing. The other thing is, you'll notice here there's a contraction of the words it is. In academic writing, we avoid contractions unless they're in a quote, because it lowers the formality of the writing. So if you were going to actually quote this word for word, let's say in a paragraph or in your essay, you could leave the its because you're quoting from Tim Peng, who's primarily paraphrasing Steve Klein. But if you were paraphrasing this out in your own words, we would get rid of the it is, or the it's, to just read it is. Quote, there's no one answer that works for all people, he says. Who's the he? This is Steve Klein. Adding too much of a focus of the skilled trades in high school means students risk losing exposure to broad career interests too. Again, we would always want to bring the attribution in front of the quote. Klein says. At Philadelphia's Father Judge, now notice we're hearkening back somewhat to the introduction, which is a common rhetorical technique we use even in academic writing, but this is still part of this last main idea. Philadelphia's Father Judge, all 24 graduating seniors in the welding program have job offers, each paying $50,000 and above, says welder instructor Joe Williams. More employers, he says, reach out to him every semester. So if I were taking this, and let's say I wanted to use this as partly a quote in my writing, I would do something like this. Joe Williams, a welding instructor at Father Judge in Philadelphia, claims comma, quote, all 24 graduating seniors have jobs, each paying this and this and this. So there's ways that you can take even paraphrased quotes from your primary source and work them into quotes in your own writing. Aiden Holland, a senior at the high school, notice we give credibility, was recruited earlier this spring to become a nuclear submarine welder at a defense contractor in New Jersey, a position paying $75,000 a year. The 18-year-old says he's grateful to have landed a job like that with no college debt, and that his college-bound peers are often astonished to learn how he can make it with no degree. It feels good to know we're very much in demand, he says. Again, signal phrase, we would move to the front. Holland says, it feels very good to know we're very much in demand. So that is the article. Now the rest of this information you can see is part of the database information that comes from ProQuest. Very short article. I think quite easy to understand. Central idea, the increased effort to recruit high schoolers into the trades, which is revitalize shop classes across the nation. Four main ideas that help support that central idea. Trade skills are more tech infused. Summer camps are being used to recruit these students. These trade skills are now more represented at trade fairs. That this is a positive step towards the future of the workforce. So that is our primary first required source we're using this semester. You're going to use it to write your standalone academic paragraph integrating evidence, and you're going to also use it to write at least part of your academic essay, informative academic essay, using something from this article as evidence to support one of your main ideas. I hope this helps.